koroti vachalam pangum lankhayate girim yat kripatam vanti paramananda madhavam yonda pravishya mama vachimimam prasuptam sanjeevayati akhila shaktidhara sudhamna anyamscha hastacharana shravanatvagadin pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. Let us bow down before the absolute reality, the God that is all-pervading and immanent everywhere. Om peace, peace, peace. So, as you all know, our topic is Sri Krishna in the Bhagavata. So you find these two words, those who are not familiar with, Sri Krishna and Bhagavata. Sri Krishna is the most representative human symbol of Vedic tradition, the ancient Aryan Vedic tradition. I know that when I tell you that Sri Krishna is a symbol, so some of us may have this doubt. See, look at the picture of Krishna playing the flute. And also you may have come across stories, many of us, of people, housewives, menfolk, all people listening to Krishna's flute, flocking towards him. Such stories, folklore, in the form of mythologies and ballads, are well known in Hindu Vedantic tradition. So I shall begin with one very important theme, subject, which perhaps needs a little clarification. You may have heard the story of Krishna, a little child of 5 years old, stealing butter from the cowherds' homes. And the cowherds' wife and mothers and sisters all flocking towards him when they listen to this beautiful music. And if you, of course, ISKCON, many such organizations, People, of course, frequently do not understand the deep mystical spiritual implication behind. So I would rather begin with this. This music is a symbol of the divine call. It could happen in so many different ways. When we accumulate a lot of wealth, power, become very prominent, then a day comes we think, well, I won't carry this wealth with me when I die. And this wealth may disappear. The reputation, the wealth, jobs, positions, all this may disappear one day, even before death. Then we may start thinking, well, is there something beyond this? When we respond to this inquiry, these questions that emerge in our own heart, we are responding to the divine call. You can see, you hear, you read about these stories. Of course, these stories are not mentioned in this elaborate way in the text that we are going to discuss, Bhagavata text, which is the most important and surprisingly a very philosophical, Advaitic, non-dualistic text in the devotional tradition, which in its original form, in a slightly different form than what is available now that you can buy in the bookshop. It existed in some different form in 1000 BC. Then it evolved and took different forms, and around 5th century AD, it took the present shape and form that you can buy in the markets today. Bhagavata Purana, the text of Bhagavata, which is now well known all over the world, all over the Vedantic tradition. Now, when these housewives, sisters, husbands, children, cowherd children, when they respond to Sri Krishna's play of flute, they are responding to their own divine inner call. So in the stories you find mothers feeding their children, leaving that job half done and rushing out of their homes to meet Krishna. And Krishna was, remember, a little child of 5 years old who went about playing pranks as all small children do. So frequently it is given very, very unfortunate interpretation as if Krishna was a young man. Krishna was not a young man. Krishna was a baby. And these housewives, who could be Krishna's grandmothers or great-grandmothers or parents, all of them rushed to Krishna and listened to him, silently listening to his play of flute, music, the divine music. So as I said earlier, when we accumulate plenty of money and wealth and status, and one day we find the banks have collapsed, or we get a reminder, memo, a letter from the company that you are no more wanted next day onwards, you will be given a check. Your job has gone, or some near and dear ones pass away. When we return to the crematorium, or maybe from the funeral ground, then we suddenly feel, well, what's the meaning of life? Is this all that is that's relevant, that's meaningful in human life? Then we ask this question. And then our heart, our mind responds to this higher spiritual call. So Krishna's flute that is playing is the divine call that's meant for all of us. When we listen to that, we start our spiritual life, we start our spiritual journey. So I just wanted to begin with this very interesting, which is a very, very significant aspect. Now I come into the text. So in this text, in this theme, you find Krishna and Bhagavata. As I said, Krishna's life and teachings are available now in folk songs, ballads, hymns, instructions, art, music, painting, all over the Vedantic tradition, at least the Indian subcontinent. You come across stories, mythologies, ballads, folklore, paintings, all belonging to ancient times, depicting the life and teachings of Krishna. So that means he has influenced, the story of Krishna and his teachings have influenced Vedic tradition for the last several thousands of years. So he appears as a great philosopher, a teacher, an instructor, a diplomat, a soldier, and a great spiritual guide, and someone who comes to your help, to your rescue, whenever you turn your mind to him. The Bhagavata, which is the largest classical work that humanity has produced, in its larger version, it is as voluminous as 145,000 verses. In its smaller version, 100,000 verses. In this Mahabharata classic, where Krishna is depicted differently, he appears as a kind of universal figure, a great philosopher, somebody who comes to the help of an old, aged woman who prayed in her agony like Kunti, Gandhari, somebody who comes as a friend to the Pandavas when they were in trouble. And the Sunday play that we perform almost every year, twice we have done in the Olima Memorial Day, where a little child was trying to go to his school, but he had to walk through a dense forest. So one day he told his mother, well, I'm afraid because there are wild animals and robbers, I'm told, in this forest. So how do I go to my school? I'm frightened. So mother tells, you just call Krishna's name, that's enough. The little child, maybe 3 or 4 years old, didn't know what it meant. Anyway, he thought Krishna may be a small child, a student like himself. So as he was walking through the forest, he heard the noise from the dense forest, wild animals making noise. The little child was frightened. So his mother had instructed him, call Krishna's name. So he started calling Krishna's name. Hari is the name that you find in the Sunday Memorial Sunday School, children's play, little children. And immediately Krishna took the form of a little child and came and took him across the dense forests. Of course, so you can find the stories going ahead. So you find Krishna has influenced folklore, mythologies, even the human imaginations for the last several millennia. With the result that Swami Vivekananda makes an interesting statement where he says, Krishna appears to be the most universal and the first great teacher in the history of the world to discover and proclaim the grand truths of love for love's sake, devotion for devotion's sake, and duty for duty's sake. The Karma Yoga which our friends perform in Olima once a month, our friends come, our devotees, some of them are high-placed, well-placed, professionals, all of them in fact. They all come and help us in cleaning up this lecture hall, arranging this mic. So we call it Karma Yoga. You know who was the original exponent of this Karma Yoga? It was Sri Krishna. And Bhakti Yoga that you find, the path to God through devotion, it was Krishna who taught this for the first time. The highest knowledge, Jnana Yoga, reaching the highest divine through intellectual understanding, logical, rational self-analysis. Jnana Yoga, Krishna is the original teacher. And we are teaching Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Patanjali belongs to maybe around, according to one school of historians, 1400 BC. Krishna lived in 3300 BC, that means 3300 BC. That's the verdict of the view of most historians. It was Krishna who first taught Raja Yoga, which is in a way dealt with or expounded in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So all the 4 yogas is Krishna's creation, his instruction. The Karma Yoga that our devotees practice, they start cooking, they serve, all these things, all this work they do. Duty for duty's sake, the essence of Karma Yoga. It was taught by Krishna in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, which belongs to around 3300 BC. So we can imagine the impact, the influence of Krishna in Vedantic tradition. This Krishna is the central theme of Bhagavata Purana, which is the topic for our discussion today. See Krishna in the Bhagavata. Bhagavata is a text, which I said earlier, which took its present form around 5th century AD. It is one of the most complicated texts from the standpoint of the structure, the grammar and syntax. Long lines, long verses, which is the Bhagavate Panditya Pariksha, this is a statement, means you test your knowledge of Sanskrit language by your ability to expound Bhagavata Purana. So, that is the status of this book. And as I said earlier, Bhagavata is the first text which tells us that you can reach God by a blending, a harmonious blending of intellect and heart, devotion and philosophical analysis. Jnana, bhakti, samuchaya means a blending, a harmonious blending of heart, which corresponds to devotion and intellect. Jnana, bhakti, blending of the path of knowledge and the path of devotion. Its first word, janmadhyasya yataka, which means from which reality the entire creation emerges, where it exists, and towards which it gets dissolved, the origin of the universe. So a kind of cosmological, ontological analysis. That's how it begins. That is the first skandha, the first book of the text. It has got 12 books. It's called skandha in Sanskrit. Here you find S-K-N-D-H-A, skandha, means it's a book. So it is divided into 12 books. The beginning of the first book itself is this, the one absolute reality from which the whole creation emerges. And you know how it ends? Satyam Param Dhimahi. We meditate upon the absolute reality, the absolute truth. Praise the absolute reality. So it is highly philosophical, but its central theme is devotion. Now, I would say a few things about these books, what we call Puranas. You may have heard of these Puranas, mythological books. In Vedantic tradition, there are 3 categories, entire Hindu canonical literature. is divided into three categories. The Vedas, equals to these. Then the Smritis, which contain instructions on how we must perform, do our duty in our individual life, in our family life, and also in the national cultural life. So how one should act and behave as a exemplary mother, father, son, daughter, brother, whatever may be our role, or an ideal citizen or a member of society. And how we must practice this ancient Vedic culture in our national and social, family, individual life. That is Smritis called. There are 18 Smritis. The oldest one belongs to around 1800 BC, Manusmriti. And the third category is Puranas. Puranas are actually 36 in number. Now, you can imagine, the sheer volume of this canonical literature is so mind-boggling. Mahapuranas, which are called 18, and Upapurana, subsidiary mythological books. So this Purana is, in a way, it is a combination of mythology and history, and also ethics. So it's not purely historical, but you find many historical factors. In fact, the last book of Bhagavata Purana gives a long list of the many ancient emperors who are all well known in Indian history. Ashoka, you heard of the India's national flag is Ashoka Chakra, the Buddhist Chakra. That Chakra, the Ashoka Chakra, Ashoka was a great, Ashoka the Great, that's how he is known in Western historical literature. The Ashoka's name is mentioned here in the Bhagavata Purana. So you find it contains a lot of historical material, but also mythological, philosophical, and many such ideas are found here. So that's, now as I said, there are total 36 such works, 18 primary Puranas and 18 subsidiary Puranas. What do they contain? So there is a verse, Sargascha Pradisargascha Vamsho Manyantiranicha Vamshani Charidam Chaiva Puranam Panchalakshanam. The subsidiary mythological books contain description of the origin of the universe, its life, number of kings and priestly and royal dynasties, and a lot of teachings which formed a legacy of Vedic tradition. And then the 18 fundamental primary Puranas contain Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanamutayeha Manyantar Ishwana Katha Nirodho Muktihi Aseha. So I won't, I'm quoting these verses just to make it clear that these ideas are mentioned in these ancient books. So the contents of the primary Puranas: primary creation, secondary creation, means of subsistence, protection by incarnation, description of great ancestors, genealogy of different dynasties, history of dynasty, then what happens to the world, purpose of human life, and who is our ultimate support. Or of course, what I mentioned just now do not constitute the central theme of our present talk, but I just wanted to make it clear as to what is the position of the Bhagavata Purana in the world spiritual literature. So the Bhagavata Purana is one of the Puranas, and Puranas are by tradition not very important. Vedas are important. But Bhagavata Purana has got a special importance because it tells you what you should do in times of crisis. to drive home this idea, I can narrate a story that comes at the beginning of the text. How the author of Bhagavata Purana happened to write this book. His name is Vyasa, the author of Mahabharata. That will give an idea of its real practical utility. Vyasa was a great sage, a great author, a great philosopher of those times. So he had already written so many books, so many great philosophical treatises, classics. But he was terribly depressed. The old man, he was perhaps the greatest and the most well-known author of his times. He was a great professor, let us say. He had so many disciples. And he was himself known as a great sage, a wise man of those days. So after writing all these great books, which people read with great benefit, which helped people, he himself felt depressed. He was facing a terrible internal conflict, the author of this book. So one day evening, he was sitting in the banks of a river, an ancient river, Saraswati. He was brooding over, see what a pity. He was so well known, the greatest teacher of his age, and the most profound philosopher and author, but totally unhappy, depressed. And as he was sitting there, another sage came there. His name was Narada. So the visitor asked Vyasa, "What's the matter with you? You are such an accomplished person." See, if a poor man is miserable, the problem is simple. He can work hard and make wealth, money, and his problem is solved. If you don't have a job, you get a job, your problem is solved. But suppose you have got all these, still you feel a kind of inner voidness. That's the most serious problem. So Narada asked him, "What's the matter with you?" Vyasa replied, "Look here, I have done all this. And some of my own disciples, who are great sages, are themselves very happy. They are in a state of spiritual ecstasy. But my condition is miserable." Then Narada told him, "Look here, you have written all these great books. But the central theme, subject of your great books, classics, was dharma." Now remember, dharma in this context means duty, obligation. What you should do in different situations, different circumstances. That's the meaning of dharma in this context. Now, in a way, Vyasa depicted dharma more as a kind of obligation or duty in the Mahabharata, which was the most well-known book till then that he had written. And in Mahabharata you find so many characters. Some of them are not very desirable type of people. There are villains also. And there are great sages also. And Mahabharata contains so many, hundreds of dialogues where great villains also put forward their idea with great clarity. So a good lawyer can win a case for the wickedest person in this world. See, law or the science of duty and obligation is neutral. It doesn't tell you what you should do for your peace of mind. It only tells you what you should do in the office. So you should be on the right side of law, not on the wrong side. So morality, ethics on the one hand, and legal interpretation on the other hand cannot often agree. They may even be in conflict one with the other. So Narada pointed out this problem. You expounded this great dharma, the science of duty and obligation in the Mahabharata. But if somebody reads Mahabharata and if he has a problem, what he should do or she should do, you didn't teach them. So you should write a book, reading which a person will know what he or she should do to get peace of mind and for his own or her own spiritual growth. And as a result, Vyasa wrote Bhagavata. Now, if you read Bhagavata, this great book, you won't start a big argument. As I said, dharma can be argued by both sides. And in the ancient English country courts, the judge who could not come out with a good verdict would say, much can be said on both sides. That means Constitution is neutral. Constitution may support what is ethically, morally right. Or it could even support what is ethically and morally wrong. You can find such instances in the history of Constitution, in the history of legal affairs. That's the tragedy of modern Constitution. But without Constitution, we can't live in the world. Necessary evil. So, Vyasa decided to write what later became the greatest devotional classic of Vedantic tradition, Bhagavata Purana. The central theme of this book is not legal obligation. It's called Bhagavata Dharma, it means. The Dharma has got a different meaning. Dharma doesn't mean what is constitutionally right. Here, Dharma means what is good for you, for your spiritual life, for your spiritual growth. What takes you, what helps you, what guides you in your inward spiritual journey. That is the meaning of Bhagavata Dharma. So Mahabharata, which Vyasa wrote, expounded constitution and law, dharma. But Bhagavata Purana expounded the universal moral spiritual dharma, which is called Bhagavata Dharma. And once you practice that, you will have no conflict. Say a good lawyer, a brilliant lawyer who has won a case, who later comes to know that his client was telling him a terrible, horrible lie, may not be able to sleep that night, if he's a good man, of course. But if you read Bhagavata Dharma, you have no problem. It directly gives you guidance, because the story of Krishna and his teachings constitute the essence of Bhagavata Dharma. And once you read it, you will get an intuitive understanding of what is good for you, what is the right thing for you. That is why Krishna is supposed to be the wisest character in Hindu Vedantic literature. And that's why it is said, if you read Bhagavata Purana, you find he never doubted, never cried, never, he had absolutely no problem. He faced the wickedest villains with a smile, and also he talked to great spiritual speakers and devotees also with a smile. The reason was, he could see the past, present and future in a single straight line. Very often, we become anxious, we worry, because we see only the tip of the iceberg. When we confront a problem, we think that problem is there for all time. So our mind gets terribly worried. We become extremely anxious. But a wise person will know this problem will not last long, because everything in this world is subject to changes. So he won't be worried too much. And again, if there is a very enjoyable, happy situation, Krishna was never overjoyed. He knew that that situation also will change. So very often we see only the present, which is only the tip of the iceberg. What lies below the water level, we do not know. So that's why Krishna is said to be the greatest incarnation. So, ete cha amshakala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. So you find there is a universal cosmic order which is sustained by the emergence of great teachers and spiritual guides. You may call them prophets, you may call them spiritual teachers, you may call them incarnations, who emerged in different cultures, different civilizations from time to time. So the Bhagavata Purana says Krishna was a wise person who could see the past, present and future in a single straight line. Therefore, he is the greatest incarnation and is the Lord himself. That is how Krishna is depicted in this Bhagavata Purana. Now, as I said earlier, Bhagavata Dharma is the central thesis of this book. Just to give an example, it's universal spiritual humanism. In the 11th chapter, there is a discussion between 9 sages and a great king. This king puts one question to each of these 9 great philosophers and sages. What is the nature of devotion? How should a man live in this world? What is the ultimate dharma? What we must do? Who is the greatest spiritual seeker, devotee of God, and so on. So while expounding the characteristics of a great devotee, the teacher gives the answer. Sarva bhudeshu yapasyet bhagavat bhavam atmanaha bhudani bhagavadi atmani esha bhagavatottamaha. I mean, this is a simple verse. It comes in the 11th book. So the meaning is this. The greatest spiritual seeker is one who sees God everywhere, who looks upon the whole humanity as one spiritual family. So he sees God in everyone, and he sees the whole creation humanity in God. That is the great teachings of Bhagavata. So you can imagine the universalism, the deep spirituality of Krishna's teachings. In another context, Lord Krishna says, how to worship God. Athamam sarveshu bhudeshu bhudatmanam kridalayam arhayed danamanabhyam maitriya abhinnena chakshusha. I am immanent, I am residing in everyone. So we can imagine here Lord Krishna did not mean his physical body as I. He was identifying himself with the all-pervading, omnipresent reality that is present everywhere. So he says, I am immanent. I am present in everyone. I am present everywhere. Therefore, you should worship me by practicing compassion, charity, generosity, friendship, and also by showing your devotion to me in the form of showing your compassion to your fellow human beings. And he says, anyone who thinks that God sits in a place and he can please God by worshipping that particular God in the particular manner, by reading a particular book, and hates everyone in this world, such a person will never get peace of mind. If anyone wants peace of mind, he should be able to see God, God's presence, everywhere, in everything. Dushada parakaye mam manino bhinnadarshinaha bhudeshu baddhavairasya na manashantim pritchati. It's a famous verse. Those who see different means he is different from the other person, I am different from him, and I can have a private understanding with my God, my path. So where religion is defined as ceremonies and external practices, without the element of universal humanism present in it. You see, Krishna says, such a person will never get peace of mind. So you can see this spiritual humanism and the universalism. Yomam sarveshu bhudeshu sandam atmanam ishwaram hitvarcham bhajade maudhyat bhasmanneva jhodisah. He says, it's a very interesting verse. Normally, when you practice these rituals, Vedic rituals, you should offer your offerings in blazing fire, as you may have seen the Homa fire, the fire sacrifice. January 1st, we do that. So, some sacred things we offer in blazing fire. The fire is conceived to be a vehicle, an instrument that takes our offerings to God. This is the old Vedic concept. And Krishna says, those who do not see God as present in everyone, as immanent in everything, as the all-pervading reality, but sees God as sitting somewhere in a place, who looks upon God as somebody who will be happy if you perform some external ritual ceremonies. Such a person's spiritual practices are like offerings in dead ash. So this is the literal meaning, so I'll explain this. See, the sacrifice, the ritual is supposed to be performed in blazing fire, not in dead ash. But suppose a person, instead of starting a fire and do his offerings in the blazing fire, if he goes on offering things in dead ash, that ritual will not produce the expected result. Similarly, Krishna says, so you can see the universal spiritual humanism. So, all the great Vedantic teachings that we normally find in the works of Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, or the Upanishads, all you can find the teachings of Krishna here. What he says is this: if we cannot see God everywhere, if we cannot extend our heart to our fellow human beings, then that kind of spiritual practice is not going to help us. It's like offering flowers instead of offering in burning fire. Yomam sarveshu bhudeshu sandam atmanam ishwaram hitvarcham bhajade maudhyat bhasmanneva jihotiha. That is Krishna's statement. Of Krishna, where he expounds his great Bhagavata Dharma, the highest spiritual truth. Now, anyone who reads this will immediately understand that first of all, you have to be a good human being to become spiritual. So, on the other hand, if you read the rules and regulations of a few rituals and practices, we won't be able to reach the highest spiritual goal. Atmanascha parasyabi yakarodi andarodaram tasya bhinnadruso murtyur vidade bhayamulbanam. So, I am going. Aham sarveshu bhudeshu bhudatma avasthita sada tam avajnaya mam martya gurudi archa vidambana. All these, there are long sentences which I am not going to expound one after another. What it means is this: people, ignorant people, without understanding the fact that I, here when Lord Krishna uses the word I, he means the all-pervading Brahman. In that state of his total identity with the universal spiritual reality, he is using the word I. He says, I am present in everything, everyone, in everybody. Without understanding this, people who just confine their religious life to empty rituals, their religious life is only an external show. It is sham religion, so to speak. That's the statement of Krishna. That's why, in the Bhagavata Purana, there is an interesting scene where Vyasa describes how Krishna was born. In fact, the essence of the great teachings of Bhagavata can be found in the very one important verse that is in the 3rd chapter. Sorry, it can be the 10th chapter, So you find in that particular 10th chapter that this is called, it is called 10th chapter means 10th skandha, really. 10th chapter, Dasama skandha, which deals with Krishna's birth. So in the book, you find the Bhagavata text, you find book 1, book 2, like that. There are 12 books. Each book may contain several sections called chapters, adhyaya. So in the 10th book, there is a description of Krishna's birth. So in that particular verse itself, Vyasa gives a graphic description of this immanent, all-pervading nature of Krishna as the absolute reality. Nisidhe tama udbhude jayamane janardane devakyam devarupinyam vishnu sarvaguhaseha avirasi yatha pracyam disindu iva pushkalaha. It's a very interesting verse. It's extreme pitch dark at night. Suppose suddenly there is a full moon that suddenly emerges. Like that Krishna is born. That is a description, poetic description. But the most important word is Sarva Guhasyeha, means this Lord, Krishna, who was born, is present in everything. So the idea that God, in the ultimate sense, goes beyond the conventional definitions of a particular human being who comes to do certain things, but rather God in the ultimate sense is one universal spiritual reality which is present everywhere in everything. So the highest teachings of non-dualistic philosophy can be found in the Bhagavata Purana. Now, if you read this, then you can't hate anyone. In the teachings, Lord Krishna says, you cannot reach your goal in spiritual life if you see difference everywhere. You may have to act in our practical life, you may have to use your power of a discerning mind. That statement also comes in the Bhagavata Purana. But we should always keep in mind that God is not a being that lives in a place. We will be happy when we practice certain external rituals, without bothering about how we live, what we think. The highest sign of a spiritual seeker is he looks upon the whole humanity as one spiritual truth. So, the greatness of this text is that on the one hand, the medium is the medium of mythological stories. The book is full of stories, dialogues, descriptions of dynasties, different philosophers, sages, and so on. But the central theme is the fact that God lives everywhere and God lives in our heart. The best way to become a devotee of God is to practice compassion, universality, kindness, and essentially goodness for everyone. That's why Krishna is called Avatara. Avatara, the English translation is incarnation. Now, perhaps this needs a little description. In the Bhagavata Purana also there is a very interesting description of who is an avatar. As I mentioned earlier, in our life normally we all practice meditation, different kinds of spiritual practices. And we read about great mystics, great spirituals, teachers, sages who attained very high level of spiritual growth, illumination. They are not necessarily incarnations or avatars, because through their through the effort, they reach the highest wisdom. So it is an ascent for them. From the human dimension, they reach the divine dimension. So from the human to the divine is an ascent. But avatara means the divine becoming the human being. So it is a descent. I mean, the Supreme Godhead himself or herself takes the form of a human being and goes through all the normal experiences of ordinary human beings. But in many of their activities, behavior, in their attitude towards others, they display the divine dimension. So, incarnation or avatara means the divine descending to the human level, being born a son or daughter of a parents, and then going through the ordinary life. But then, in course of time, they display their unique spirituality. So, incarnation or avatara is a descent from the divine to the human dimension. But they always remember the divine dimension. That's a difference. So it is said, like a rich man playing the role of a beggar and getting Oscar award. He may appear to be more miserable than a professional beggar, but the misery is only on his face, the makeup. So he always remember that after the makeup is removed, he will go and stay in a 5-star hotel. So the misery is only superficial. So a great incarnation, he may also go through all these trials and tribulations in life, but they don't affect him much. On the other hand, ordinary jivas, ordinary spiritual seekers, they are in a process of ascent, means through constant gradual spiritual practice, they become spiritually more and more enlightened. So it is called an ascent. So you find many of these great teachings. Of course, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swami, Bhaga itself is a divine, unique spiritual quality that every incarnation embodies in his life. So all these ideas you find in the Shankaracharya's commentary on the Gita. For Bhagavan Jnana Aishwarya Shakti Bala Virya Tejobhi Sada Sampanna. The highest spiritual wisdom, prosperity, power, strength, virtue and affluence. It means all possible human virtues and qualities that we aspire for become natural for an incarnation, not acquired through effort. So anyway, I have tried to give you in a very short bird view of Lord Krishna, his character, and especially his teachings, which are so deep, so universal, and so spiritual, and so humanistic. That's what I wanted to stress. Something very interesting, the humanistic element in Krishna's teachings. He says, I won't care for your worship or prayer if you are a bad man who pay a donation to church or a temple, and you think I can be in the good books of God. I won't listen to your prayer. That's what Lord Krishna says. So the best way for you to become a devotee, try to be a good person. Not too good towards me necessarily, but towards others. be a good husband, good wife, good brother, good sister, good neighbor, good citizen, good human being, a gentleman or a cultured lady, whatever may be the situation. That's the best way for you to be in my good books. That's the teachings of Krishna. So the deep humanism based on spirituality, that is the uniqueness of Lord Krishna as a teacher, and also the uniqueness of his teachings, and that is also the uniqueness of the text, which is so universal in its outlook and also in its content. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Now we have announcements. The subject for next Sunday is Vedanta philosophy. Childcare is provided during our Sunday lectures. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. On Friday evenings, a scripture class is held in Vivekananda Hall at 7:30 p.m. The topic for study is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So we are resuming the classes, regular Friday classes on Patanjali Yoga Sutras next Friday, 23rd September, in Vivekananda Hall. On Sundays, all are welcome to use the library from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of these services. As usual, after the lecture, there will be a question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall, and all are welcome. A very important announcement. We are planning to have the rededication of the old temple. The program will be held on 29th and 30th October, Saturday and Sunday. Here is an announcement. Due to construction delays, the old temple rededication programs will be held at the new temple here. On Saturday evening, October 29, we will have Kali Puja from 7:30 to 11 p.m. So Kali Puja was the path of spiritual practice that Sri Ramakrishna followed. Sri Ramakrishna practiced this puja for many, many years. The program on Sunday, October 30th begins with an audio-visual presentation on the old temple from 1 p.m. to 1:45. And then we will have the important program, a public meeting and talks. So I should repeat once more. We will have the old temple rededication program on October 29 and October 30th, Saturday and Sunday. All the programs will be held here in the new temple. On October 29, Saturday, we will have Kali Puja here in this shrine from 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. Then we will have public meeting from 2 to 5:30 p.m. here in the same hall on Sunday, October 30th. So we will have monks and dignitaries, including the professors and also the Bishop William Swing, and we will have benedictions from different religious traditions, talks on different topics on religion and spirituality, from 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. here on October 30th, Sunday. Before the public meeting, there will be an audio-visual presentation from 1 to 1:45 p.m. Thank you. Namaskar.